So this is the final piece of the puzzle, and today we are going to declare this hub lit.
But folks here at ECFiber, they got together, created this community effort, and now they've succeeded, and we have high-speed internet in 23 of the Upper Valley towns. It's a great day.
May I have your attention, please? I want to welcome you all. I want to welcome you all. Thank you so much for coming out today, despite perhaps being scared off by the rain. When it started pouring this morning at about 9:15, the guys from the VFW who were going to provide us with chairs outside next to our temporary stage that was going to have bunting, they were like, oh, these are like nice chairs, and it's raining. And they said, you know, F.X, come and take a look. And they said, now wouldn't this be drier? And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to say yes. All right. So, so here we are. Now, the plan is that during the first 45 minutes or so, we're going to hear from Senator Welch, and then we're going to hear from a series of speakers who all played a key role in making this day possible. And we're going to roll out the story of getting ECFiber to the point where it was a communication union district and it was able to more easily do the job of building out world-class broadband in our original 23 towns, and then we added 8 more. So after today, it's not like we're going to rest on our laurels. It's that we've got 8 more towns to do, and we've already started 3 of them. So after that after that's done, we want you all to walk down to Northern Stage, to the lobby of Northern Stage, where we're going to have a reception. There are going to be sandwiches there, salads, soft drinks, and we're going to hear from a series of speakers, people who are involved now, especially at the state level, with what's going on, because the state in 2019 realized that what we were doing was actually a fantastic strategy for solving the problem of bringing world-class broadband to rural Vermont. Okay, so with that little heads up on what the order of the day is, I would like to officially welcome you to the hub lighting ceremony here in White River Junction, and we're so pleased to have you here. This really does mark the completion of our original mission. And we have in the audience today people who really did help make this miracle happen. People who were participants in 2006 and 2007 in the early organizing. Just this morning, I got a text from someone, and it was their notes from May of 2006 at the very beginning of this effort. And it was remarkable to look and see all the things that they were struggling with. You know what? They're similar to what we're struggling with today, actually. There are over 500 people who made about 479 separate investments in the early years when we raised money by issuing private placement promissory notes, almost $7 million. We have people who have served on the board and were executives of ValleyNet Inc. that started in Dartmouth in the early 90s. And what were they doing? They were providing local dial-up numbers for the Upper Valley and local dial-up for internet. Why did somebody need to provide local dial-up for internet? Because the big internet companies were not providing phone numbers in White River Junction or Lebanon, right? That was the original rural broadband crisis. And anyway, Dartmouth told them, get the hell out of here. So they set up their nonprofit business, and then years later, they were key people involved in helping organize this effort. And then they became the operating company for ECFiber. Because ECFiber, as a collection of municipalities, it doesn't have any business expertise, right? You can't have a board of directors that's got like 23 people on it. So we did the smart thing. We made a contract with ValleyNet that basically said, keep your nose out of our business. And we did that, and it was very successful. It worked really well for a long time. And then we have people who were both on our board and legislators, and they helped us get the CUD law passed in 2015. And I also wanted to invite a couple of key people here from the town of Hartford who were, because I also live in this town, I live over in Queechee. You know, we all supported this idea even though we already had cable. We were lucky enough to have cable, but we recognized the need to get it out there. And so you'll be hearing from some of them as well. So we've all, in this area, patiently waited for this day, and we're now delighted to realize that right here in White River Junction, just like in only a few really big cities, the residents here will have access to symmetrical gigabit service. Same speed up and down. 1,000 up, 1,000 down. Not 1,000 up, 1,000 down, and 40 up. That's what I call world-class broadband. If your company can offer 1,000 download and 1,000 upload at the same time at a reasonable price, for us it's 134 bucks, that's world-class broadband. If you can't deliver that, you don't offer world-class broadband. And so we have world-class broadband right here in the Brooklyn of Vermont, White River Junction. Okay, all right. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, one of our customers and one of our earliest supporters, Senator Peter Welch.
When I got out of law school in Berkeley, California, and when I graduated, I had a plan, right? I had a chance to work on Wall Street. I had a chance to work on Market Street in San Francisco. And I had a chance to work on K Street in Washington. And I ended up on Bridge Street in White River Junction. Right? And the plan was someday down the road, I'd come in here and a band would be playing. And that was fantastic. What a day. What a wonderful, wonderful accomplishment. When you think back, is Stan Williams here, by the way? All right, Stan Williams couldn't make it, but we all know what we owe to him. And, all this started with ECFiber, with what at the time was really a radical idea. And the radical idea, well, there was an insight and a radical idea. The insight was that if we in rural Vermont, in Heartland, in White River, in Queechee, in Stockbridge, if we in rural Vermont were going to depend on the big telecommunication companies to wire our homes and get us internet, we'd be waiting until our grandchildren had grandchildren. It wasn't going to happen. And the insight was, no matter how much they talked that they were caring about our community, there was no business model that would make it work. And what they cared about, and we understand this, was the shareholders and what the profitability was going to be. And obviously that was where you had big populations. So that was the insight. And we didn't get talked out of it. The radical proposition was that everyday citizens working together could take care of ourselves. And look what we've done. Yeah. Here at ECFiber, in the community union districts and all around Vermont, we took our future into our own hands. That's what we did. Irv, you were a big part of that. And what I find so inspiring about it is that radical idea that citizens could come together and advocate and implement found its audience in Washington, where we had the Rural Broadband Caucus that I started with Republicans and Democrats. And our view was that, it was your view, that rural America was entitled to the same high-speed internet as urban America. And we had select boards, we had citizens, we had the state legislature, all of us unified in the idea that, hey, we're not going to settle in rural America, rural Vermont, for internet that's, quote, good enough. No way. We want F.X. Flinn approved internet. That's what we want, right? And it worked. So we ended up making the case, in Washington when we were talking to my colleagues who were from urban America. They didn't get it, that rural America just didn't have the internet. They assumed what they had, everybody had, and frankly, a lot of them didn't particularly care. And we were making the case with the Rural Broadband Caucus, and then, of course, COVID came along, and the case was made for us because you couldn't go to work, you couldn't, kids couldn't do homework, you couldn't get a medical appointment unless you had high-speed internet. So this extraordinary cooperation, starting with citizens who had the vision, and then translated into advocacy to create these structures, like the community union districts, to then having a legislature that responded in Montpelier to the urgency that rural Vermonters had, to Congress. And yesterday, Christine Hultquist came back from the White House with her pal Joe Biden, and she twisted his arm, and Biden said, "How much do you want?" And she said, "How about $230 million?" And it was announced yesterday that in addition to the money, we've already got another $230 million coming here. By the way, Vermont did something that was so important. I remember on the Energy and Commerce Committee, we were talking about mapping, and Verizon went out, or whatever. I don't want to use any names here, but so I'll deny that. And said if there was one home in a quadrant, then that meant everybody in the quadrant had internet. In our public, Juneteenth is here, our public utility department went out and put a lie to that and showed how the maps were totally bogus. And then that enabled us to advocate in Washington for, hey, fellas, get the maps right. And then there was adjustments because the maps were wrong, and that meant that we got about another $30 million that we were entitled to help us build out the internet. So, yeah, no, that's true. And that was governmental action. And what's so wonderful for me, and I think for all of us, all of us made a decision to live in rural America. My decision, I mentioned, was to come here instead of elsewhere. And what this whole effort of us building internet shows is that those folks who are all here in this room value community above all else. And the reason we needed internet was because that was going to be essential to us having the capacity to build communities where people could work where we could educate our kids and have some confidence they'd have a shot, where our businesses that had to use a way of marketing from here would be able to do it. So these community union districts, the Stan Williams vision when all this started, the vision was not about profit. The vision was about community. But then folks used solid business principles to set up really good community union districts and help us get the internet that is so essential to the well-being of our community and our state. And everybody here, I see Ken Parker, all the years you served on the select board, and we could just go around and around and look at folks who have planted their feet solidly in this place we love, which we call Vermont, and have decided that their life's work is about building community, and we are now on the threshold of having that high-speed internet that goes to every home, every barn, every business in the state of Vermont. So I am thrilled to be here and to have played a small role in being part of the big accomplishment that everyone here rightly should take some credit for. So thank you very, very much.
We're getting closer and closer to the golden patch cord moment. More on that later. I really, really appreciate this, and Senator Walsh, thank you so much for making the time today to be here. Really, really appreciate that. You know, I first read about this effort in a posting on the Hartford listserv on Halloween in 2007. A mere 5,718 days ago. And shortly after that, I heard a guy even younger than me at the time who was on the select board talking it up. So I would like to introduce you to Chuck Worcester. Chuck, come and tell us about those early days.
Is about the right song for today. Thanks very much. It's great to be here and to be so close to the end of this dream that we've all had and shared together. I was brand new to elected politics in 2007, and myself and 4 others on our select board went up to South Royalton to sign the interlocal agreement, which set off the process of ECFiber in the very beginning. And it was a really wonderful day. A lot of hard work had gone into that point, including by our town manager at the time, Hunter Reesberg, put in a lot of great effort on the town of Hartford's behalf to get us to that point. It turns out in hindsight that 2007 was probably the most important year and most exciting year that I was on the select board. It started off with signing the papers to build the Upper Valley Aquatic Center with the Sports Venue Foundation. In the middle, we signed the papers to start ECFiber. And then by the time it was over, credit markets had locked up. We had a hiring freeze in town, and what was now known as the Great Recession had started. So others will tell the story of what happened next. But at the time that we signed the papers, it was a truly exciting moment. And I went home and I said to my wife, "You're not going to believe this, we're about to have high-speed internet." And so I'm really glad that I got this thing, whatever it is, to tell my wife we're going to get high-speed internet.
So in leading up to all that, there was a heck of a lot going on to get 23 towns to all have identical warrant items on the town meeting ballot. Dave Brown, come up and tell us about that.
What a good-looking group. And sounds great Dave Brown. I'm the ECFiber delegate from Woodstock, but my work with that select board and encouraging other select boards predates that quite a bit. So let me tell you a little bit about that, because it was way, way a long time ago when one of my friends called me up and said, "So Dave, how's your internet?" I said, "Well, it's actually horrible because it doesn't work at all." He says, "We got kind of an idea. You need to come to a meeting." It's like, is this like, AA or something? So I went to this meeting. I didn't know what it was all about, but there's a friend I could trust who will meet him in a moment. I listened to the story and, geez, it sounded like a great idea. A lot of it was way over my head, but people I trusted and admired. So I came home from the meeting, and first thing I did was I asked my wife to get up off the couch. And I pulled all the cushions off the couch. And she said, "David, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm raising money for ECFiber." So, a lot of time goes by, and another friend of mine figured out a way to legitimately get a bunch of money, but it involved going door to door, asking for people to invest in what are called promissory notes, and encouraging people in other towns to do the same. And as a result of all that, we raised, I think, about $7.5 million, which was actually quite a bit more than I had in the seat cushions. But anyway, the thing about this whole thing, looking back, everything that we've accomplished in going to that initial meeting and just doing crazy stuff, and later on going for revenue bonds worth $60 million, it's been such an incredible experience, but emblematic of what Vermonters do. And that is, when the big boys say you can't do it, we just do it ourselves. I'm glad to be here to kick this off. Very glad that I have wicked good internet at my house, and I want to introduce to you my friend, Laredo.
First chair of the ECFiber governing board, Laredo Solo.
It is such a treat to be here today. It is amazing. I am seeing so many people, so many familiar faces. Oh my God, and we have been through so much. So the story is we're traveling around icy roads in the middle of the winter. We're getting the interlocal contract signed. That's all in place. The governing board is meeting. We gather together, and there's this guy I hear about. His name is Tim Nolte, and he's up in Burlington. He has this vision that we can build fiber to the home in rural America. In central Vermont, we can build fiber to the home. Crazy idea, but let's find out more about it. So he comes down and talks to us, and the group grows. The first meeting we have is 12 towns, and then there's 23 towns at the next information meeting, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. We're getting together. So we spend the next 2 years struggling. Every month the governing board is meeting, every single month. Every week, Sunday evening, 6 p.m., the executive board is meeting. Those of you who are on the executive board know we had conference calls. freeconferencecall.com, 6 p.m. on Sunday night. We're going to meet. It was a struggle. We put all the pieces together. We had an idea, a non-recourse capital lease. We can sell that in the market. We're going to find an investment banker, Kim Moore, and we're going to do this. We're going to put the pieces together. We've got this brilliant engineer, Ron Castle, who figures out we don't have to build fiber at 44,000 per mile. We can build fiber at 20,000 per mile. That means that rural fiber can be spread around. Tim Nolte takes the 20,000 per mile figure and puts it into his magic spreadsheets and says, we have a real economic model. This is really viable. So we talked to Oppenheimer Financial. We put all the pieces together. We had Paul Giuliani, who's one of the most brilliant municipal attorneys in Vermont, working with us. We had an incredible team together with the governing board. Everybody is working on contingency. Everybody is hoping for the best. We put the pieces together. It's now September 1st, 2008, and all the paperwork is done. All the lawyers have finished their stuff. I've got a 3-ring binder that is literally this thick. I've got it out in my car if anybody wants to see it. We're going to go to Oppenheimer on October 24th, and we're going to do a public offering of a non-recourse capital lease, and we're going to sell it, by God. It's going to work. We're going to raise $65 million, and we're going to wire up 23 towns. Hey, how much have you guys spent wiring up 23 towns? $64 million is what F.X. told me this morning. So that was a pretty darn good estimate, okay? So we take off and we go to Oppenheimer and we're all set, and then the credit markets melt down. Just hold on, F.X., I'm going to finish up in a second, but you got to give me time. This is my life. This is 15 years of my life we're talking about. Don't cut me off. All right. We're all set. It's September 1st. We've got all the paperwork. I've got a document dated September 29th that says we have to get all the select boards to sign the same document, and all those documents have to be transported to a central location. All of this has to be arranged logistically. We've got to make this all work. October 24th is the date every select board has to decide to sign this paper. Oh my God. And then September 15th, Lehman Brothers goes bust. That's the end of the dream. We're finished. No more money, no more credit, no more nothing. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We never quit. We have to have broadband internet. And it may take an international financial crisis to slow us down, but it is not going to stop us. We're going to continue on. We never, ever considered quitting. So the credit markets are done. The federal administration passes the ARRA, American Rebuilding and Reconstruction Act, and there's plenty of money in there for broadband in rural communities. So we applied to the USDA RUS. We're the poster child of rural broadband. We're shovel ready. Let's go. Sorry, folks. RUS turns us down. Answer is no. Do we give up? No. We go for a second round of financing. We go for a second round of applications with RUS. They turn us down twice. Okay, we're not going to give up. What about the state, the Vermont Telecom Authority, VTA? They have money. Maybe they'll help us. We go and apply to VTA. No, sorry, beat it. We go and talk to the state treasurer, Jeb Spalding. Mr. Spalding, we've got a shovel-ready project. This is financially feasible. We can do this. Sorry, you guys, you really don't know what you're talking about. You can't do this. Get out. So what's left? We've gone to the state, we've gone to the feds, we've gone to the capital markets. Nobody has nothing for us. The answer is no. We're a community. We're resilient. We're going to do this ourselves. We are going to do this ourselves. We will do friends and family financing. We will sell promissory notes, and we will raise enough money to get the ball rolling, to get it kicked off. Dan Levitt in Barnard gets pre-registration. Over 65% of the households in Barnard pre-register for fiber optic because Barnard has nothing for broadband at all. And so we raise a few $1 million and we kick off the project in Barnard. And once it's launched, and the rest is history. There are so many important, great names from this period. I'd like to bring them all up, but I'll give F.X. a break, and I won't spend any more time. But I just want to say that this moment is one of the happiest moments of my life.
Yeah, the whole private placement promissory note thing was quite the deal. Jury Warden Dan Childs, please come up and tell us a little bit about that, and we'll hear about John Roy. And I'm so glad Laredo mentioned Paul Giuliani. I think a lot of you know who Paul was. We lost him last year. We lost John Roy last year. And but Paul was the legal mind who was really the god of municipal law here in Vermont. And without his advice, without his wordsmithing, without his legal talent, this wouldn't exist. Okay.
I wear a hat as a delegate from Randolph, but I was there during those momentous moments that have already been alluded to, and just to follow up from the stage set by Laredo, there we were, 23 towns, pretty loosely organized, but with a startup entity and lots of lofty visions and technological expertise, and hopes were dashed by the economic crisis that happened. But I want to reiterate what Laredo also said. I don't think giving up was ever in the cards. There was despair, but we just out of the ashes, we saw another idea emerge that maybe we could just start building. We got some resources. We certainly had the technological expertise, and we had a lot of meetings that had already been invested. We were there, and so we realized that we could just start connecting if we could just get some money. And the process was, we were figuring it out on our own, but then essentially we found wherever there was the best, most motivated board members and roots in their town and people they had as connections, we just did it the old-fashioned way, word of mouth, and building a group of investors who were interested in having, it was self-motivated, they wanted their own house connected, and they had some money and they were willing to put their money where their mouth was, and we started building these routes that didn't make much sense from a technological networks perspective. There's all these spurs all over the place, but as long as we could connect them like we did with Barnard initially to a hub in Royalton, we started building a little network and we started getting little bits of revenue. And by geez, it sounded feeble at first, but we realized that it was successful. It was elitist, and it certainly didn't build the network that we would have built if we'd had all the money up front. We would have done a better job of making it work and getting out the folders. But what we ended up with was a business model that was proven. We ended up with some equity on the ground around the polls, and we ended up with some small revenues. And when conditions improved, we were ready. And so we were able to go to the bond market. But in order to get there, what we had to put together was that number of something like 500 investors who were from the 23 towns, basically. Most of them from Vermont, but some of them were from other states, it turned out. And something like $7 million. And that was the seed money that made us kind of believable. So I want to follow up with introducing Dan Childs. May I do it? From my neighboring town. He's also the ECFiber treasurer currently. And he has a story about how it actually rolled out in his town. His road.
Thanks, Barry. What I'd like to do is actually jump forward a little bit, but it directly follows from what Jerry was talking about these private placement notes that actually enabled my town, Brookfield, which has absolutely nothing in it other than a bridge that floats on a lake. I'd like to talk about how that has really dramatically changed the neighborhood in which I live. On approximately 3 miles of dirt road, there are about 22 houses. And when we moved into this neighborhood about 16 years ago, more than half of those houses were inhabited by retirees. There were 3 homes that were summer vacation homes and were vacant most of the year. There were 3 farms, and the rest of the houses were lived in by people who had to commute a long way to work. And at that time, when we moved up here, I will never forget dialing up, having come from a place that actually had DSL, and I could not believe it. It was astonishing. You would download something, and it would tell you that you only had another 17 hours to wait until it was finished. And before those 17 hours were up, phone line would go out, and you'd have to start over. It was unbelievable. Satellite came after that, and it was marginally better, but it was still poor. And it was not until 2016 that we actually got world-class, high-speed fiber optic internet courtesy of ECFiber. Since then, our neighborhood has changed. Fewer than half of the houses are now lived in by retirees. There are no summer vacation homes. There are 2 farms. But the big difference is that in 8 of those 22 homes, the people who live there now work remotely. We have people who do telehealth. We have people who work for out-of-state insurance companies or out-of-state publishers. We have people who work for the largest tech company on the planet and people who work for their own small tech company. And for every one of these people, that option of living in rural central Vermont would not exist. It has also changed our neighborhood dramatically in that when we first moved there, there were 2 teenage children on this 3-mile stretch of road. There are now 13 children under the age of 10. The vast majority of these remote workers are under the age of 40. So our neighborhood has changed dramatically, and I can point to the fact that we have this high-speed fiber optic internet as the reason for that, because otherwise these people would not have moved back to Vermont. Some of them are native Vermonters and have moved back, and some people have moved to Vermont because they really like living in a rural area. But without that high-speed fiber optic internet, that would never have happened. So I really want to thank the people who had the vision, Stan Williams, John Roy, and for rolling with the punches that we got. We are now definitely a going concern, and it's actually quite enjoyable being the treasurer of a going concern. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. The business side of ValleyNet, got going with that money being raised, and under the leadership of Tim Nolte, who was the CEO of ValleyNet at the time. Tim is here. Tim, there you are. Thank you. All right. And the big thing that he brought in was, you know what? You really should start in South Royalton because that's going to be central to your whole district. And it's a lot closer to the people who need the service first. Well, that meant that the original idea to start here in White River Junction and build out, with all the money, was out the window. Ken Parker, you were on the select board in Hartford. Tell us what your reaction was.
I'm wondering why I'm here. I'm kind of an outlier. Hissing and booing after I make my comments is certainly welcome. I understand. I was not an early supporter of this. And I look back and I think it's in large part because I didn't understand it well. I was working as an insurance agent. I had a 300 baud modem. And if he thinks 17 hours is a long time, that took a week to download a policy. But in any event, I guess I was a little bit of a bump in the road back with the Hartford board. And looking back, that was at the time perhaps the right position to take, because we had a mess going on up in Burlington. We had an economy that was on the decline. We had a request for financing and underwriting of the activity of ECFiber that didn't seem to be sustainable at that point in time. So initially my vote was no, we're not going to participate. And that was in part also due to a little bit of an anger on my part, having had the understanding that ECFiber was going to operate in Hartford, and then it moved to South Royalton. That didn't make sense to me. So I got over there. Thanks to Irv Tomei, who was a longtime client of mine, who would come in and chew my ear a little bit about this great thing that they were doing. And, it takes some time for some of this stuff to filter in and reach the soul and the head. And then F.X. joined the select board. That was an adventure. That was one, I have to say that that was a real experience. F.X. and I clashed regularly on a lot of things. And at one point in time, the board decided that we'd have him continue as the ECFiber rep. And we'd give him another bone to chew on rather than the board. So FX got more involved, and look where we are today. I can't say enough good about what FX has done to usher this process along and to usher this organization into being, and to being what it is today, even though Chuck Worcester doesn't have fiber optic at his house. I'm hopeful that somewhere along the line he'll get a couple of neighbors to raise their hand so that Chuck can get the service that he deserves and needs. Be that a hint, FX, okay? Thank you very much. I'm delighted. I look forward to making that golden spike connection here.
Ken and I did great things together for this town. We pushed through a $13 million set of bonds back in 2012 that resulted in the town hall and resulted in the Maxim fields, and we were quite confident that this town would say yes to all of that, and they did. So awesome. The next person I'd like to have come up here is Carol Monroe, because at this point in the game, it was actually a business that needed to be run, and it got more and more demanding, and Stan Williams, and God, how I wish Stan could be here today, but Stan went out and he found one of the leading proponents and executors of community broadband, and she was right up here in this world, and she said yes to coming in to run ValleyNet and running ECFiber in those days where we were doing it all on locally borrowed money. Carol Monroe.
Thank you, and I'm pleased to be here today. This is just astounding to see all the people here to celebrate this momentous occasion. My first involvement with ECFiber and ValleyNet occurred in 2012. I was one of those people who invested, but didn't live in Vermont. But I was the executive director of New Hampshire Fast Roads, which was delivering fiber across the river. And I heard about this incredible company that was raising funds from their neighbors and from their community to make this happen. And so I was curious as to how that was going to happen. So I invested my money, and so I could be a part of it. And Leslie Nolte called me and said, "Where do you own property in Vermont? Because we would like to be able to build to you." And I'm like, "Dublin, New Hampshire, can you build to me there? Because frankly, New Hampshire is going to take a long time to make that happen." So I was encouraged by the community activism, the support for their community, for everyone in the community. I was amazed that the person at the top of the hill would invest $30,000 so that everyone on their road could get service, and not blink about the fact that they would get service for a $99 installation, but they had invested the $30,000, and it was a great investment. And people did that here. It's an amazing story to tell, and I think the world has been listening to it more lately. I actually came to Vermont to become the executive director and then CEO in 2015. After everyone who's been a part of this in this room had created this organization that could deliver broadband, that could build and construct networks, and could prove that it would be successful. It was an opportunity for change for ECFiber, going from promissory notes to being a part of the revenue bond market. They had 3 years of audited financials. They were cash flow positive. They were looking for a full-time CEO, a staff that was increasing every day. Some of the individuals who are here today working for very little managed to make a living after that point in time. It was a successful opportunity. It was time to go big, and so there was an opportunity to build 250 miles at a stretch instead of 35 and get the job done. We held a contest to determine which of the towns, of 23, would be the 6 towns that we would build border to border, up every dirt road, to every premise, to every business, no exceptions. And the towns needed to encourage their constituents to sign up for broadband, and they did. And it was amazing to see that some of them are more rural than others, but for Pittsfield, Pomfret, Stratford, Thetford, West Windsor, and finishing up Barnard, those are the towns that were chosen at that time, and we built the 250 miles to reach every premise, every home, up every dirt road. Today, ECFiber serves about 8,000 customers on about 1,500 miles of network. And today, we're going to light up the White River Junction hub that will serve the last of the 23 original towns. In 2011, ECFiber offered service at 5 meg, 10 meg, and 20 megabits per second. Today, they offer service at 75 as their basic offering, 300, and a gigabit service. And here in White River Junction will be the first time that they will have the opportunity to offer a 10 gigabit service. Businesses have learned and quickly getting to the point of needing that kind of service in their towns, for their businesses. And so this hub and this environment will be able to offer the 10 gig connection speed for those businesses. It's a great change, and it's really needed. 12 years ago, it would have been difficult to imagine a need for the person who had 300 baud modem, a need for 10 gigabit service, but it is here, and it has been approaching very quickly. ECFiber is your community. owned network, built to serve you, the community, and built to meet your needs. It will continue to do so as it expands to the 8 new towns and as it anticipates the need for even more powerful broadband here in Vermont. And this model has served these 23 towns and plus 8 well, and the CUD's community union districts across the state of Vermont are going to be able to deliver that kind of service to all the unserved houses in Vermont and more. So thank you so much. And,
Okay, well, at around the same time, the board turned to Irv Tomei to take over the chair position. And it soon became apparent to him and John Roy that despite having solid audits, having the ability to raise the money, the interlocal contract was not a form of government municipal bond traders understood. It was time for a change in Vermont laws. Please welcome our Chair Emeritus Irv Tomei. Thank you.
Yes, bond investors would say interlocal what? And that had been going on for quite a while. I want to look back for a moment. Many decades ago, in public policy circles, there was an ugly term called benign neglect. What we were dealing with as rural would-be customers for broadband was malign neglect by big telecom. If it wasn't profitable for them, they didn't want anybody to do it. But they had overreached. A year before we got going, the Vermont legislature had put in place a law that said that yes, a municipality could build a broadband network, but it couldn't finance it from local taxes. Now you'd think that would be the killer. But I think that's one of the reasons that ECFiber happened and has been successful. Without that law in place, a very few towns in this area, including the one I live in, Norwich, would have had broadband from wall to wall a long time ago, and everybody else would have been out of luck. But that law forced community activists across all of our 23 towns to work together. That's one of the key elements that got us going. Second, I want to give credit again. We've heard the names. Stan Williams is a hero. John Roy is a hero. Paul Giuliani. Because as we realized that we needed to have a structure that was more recognizable to bond investors. Remember, that law did allow revenue bonds. You could borrow against future revenues. You just couldn't borrow against grand lists. So that was the opening. So we needed a law that would enable that. And it was Paul Giuliani who helped draft that. And I also want to say thanks to, I've seen several legislative friends. I would miss some of the people if I tried to name them all, but I'm glad that all of you are here. And a couple that aren't, I haven't seen here today. Mark McDonald played a major part too in getting that law into place. And I think that Jim Maslow's going to say a little bit more about how we got that law passed. But communication union districts, which have become the model for the whole state, came into being because we'd shown what we could do. Now we needed a structure that was recognizable to the rest of the world. And that's what we got. I believe that law passed in 2015, yes. And then, and ECFiber, the members of the previous body, over that second half of 2015, joined the new one. And on the 1st of January 2016, we transferred all the assets of the old structure to the communication union district East Central Vermont Telecommunications District is our formal name. You can see why we keep calling ourselves ECFiber. It's much simpler to say. Thank you.
We've been telling you the story of how ECFiber got to the place where it is today. The last piece of that puzzle was getting the 30 VSA 82 Communication Union Districts law on the books. And in the summer and fall of 2014, Paul Giuliani humored us by having a committee to draft the law. And Jim Naslund was on it. That was my first opportunity to start interacting with the leadership of ECFiber in more than just going to the meetings. And I came to see the wisdom and the presence that Jim brought to this. And then he brought that law to the legislature. Jim, tell us what happened.
Thank you, F.X. very much. And as I look around the room while I've been sitting up front, I see a lot of really good friends here that I didn't know filled in while we were beginning to talk up here. I have one distinguishing characteristic with ECFiber that other than the ValleyNet people, I think I'm the longest serving person having to do with ECFiber even before ECFiber began. And that is, as I would say, part of a team of outstanding people, and my job has been basically to try to help to get the job done, but I keep my head down for the most part. But as ECFiber said, and as Irvis said, our communication utility district legislation was important for a couple of reasons. When we wanted to begin to build out big time and wanted to get money from Wall Street, they said, well, there's two things that you need that you don't have yet. You need 3 years of clean audits. Well, we run an outstanding business, so 3 years later we could have 3 years of clean audits, but they also said you need to be something that we recognize down on Wall Street. You know, in a local contract, what on earth is that? And so the CUD law was passed, and what CUDs are Vermont municipalities with a specific public purpose. And the purpose is communication, unity communication among towns. You know, it's a Vermont municipality. ECFiber is a municipality. Maple Broadband is a municipality. The others are municipalities. And so that bill was drafted, as F.X. said, largely at the hand of Paul Giuliani. F.X. was very helpful. Laura Sibilia, who was here, Laura, raise your hand. Getting that through the legislature. So we collectively able to go to Wall Street and said, okay, we've got 3 years of clean audits, and not only that, we are a recognizable entity, which is the CUD. And with that, we were able to borrow money in tranches of several $1 million, not just $250,000 or something like that. And as Carol Monroe said, we were able to build out our first 6 towns, Thetford, my town, being one. Very proud of that. So I'm closing up the remarks, keeping you from your lunch. But I just like to say it has been an honor and a privilege to serve in this role as part of ECFiber's outfit, I guess you could call it, from the beginning. And thank you all very much. And the good thing about this, as several people have pointed out while we've been chatting here, is ECFiber basically is how Vermont does things, right? Communities do things working with each other to get the job done, and that's basically is the name of the game. We collectively have been able to get credit for creating ECFiber over the time and build out to so many places, as Dan Child said, this little town of Brookfield. And it's really quite a remarkable accomplishment, and it has been an accomplishment to which many people, many of them are here, collectively get credit, right? This is a community effort, and it works. So thank you very much.
And all GWI, ValleyNet, ECFiber employees, please come on up to the stage. We're going to light that hub. Okay, I want to introduce Tom Cecere. Tom heads up GWI Vermont LLC, and on a day-to-day basis is responsible for all of our operations. And to my left is Corey Klink. He is our chief network engineer, and he is the one who's riding herd on what's actually making the pipelines work every day. And behind this building is a beige-colored metal cabinet, and in that cabinet are all sorts of electronics that essentially boiled down to something that you're very familiar with in your own home, a little network hub. Okay, except that it's big and it's designed to do, you know, really strong stuff. But at the end of the day, you still have to have a patch cord to connect from the where the internet is delivered to where the internet goes out to the plug in the wall of your house. Except instead of going to the plug in the wall in your house, it goes to the box on the outside of your house, which then has it going in. So the symbolism of the golden patch cord is somewhat similar to the symbolism that was used when the first transcontinental railroad was completed in 1869. They put the last rail down on the last tie, and then they hammered in the last nail, which was made of gold. The golden spike. So like the golden spike moment, we have the golden patch cord moment. Now, Corey, does the hub have internet?
Yes, sir.
Tom, would you like to declare the White River Junction hub lit?
Very much so. The White River Junction hub is lit, and all of the original 23 towns are now capable.
Okay, so we're going to give a few minutes to the media here to do a little press conference with the senator. Christine, can you please stick around for that? Laura Sibilia, any other honchos here that the press might want to ask a question of? Looking out there for you all. And meanwhile, if the rest of you could proceed down to Northern Stage to the lobby, grab a sandwich, grab a soft drink. We'll be down there in about 15 minutes, and we've got a few other people who will address and tell you more about what's going on in the state. Thank you so much for being here. We're lit! I'd like to introduce Erhard Manke. He's here from Senator Sanders' office, and the senator has sent us a message.
Thank you, F.X. Much appreciated. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful celebration this morning. This is truly an amazing event, and we're really thankful to be invited here to help you all celebrate this milestone. Again, my name is Erhard Manke. I serve as an outreach representative for Senator Bernie Sanders. and I cover a number of issues, broadband and telecom being one of those. So I do have a message from my boss, from Bernie, and if you'll bear with me for a few minutes, I'll just read that message to you all. Dear friends, thank you for inviting me to join today's hub lighting ceremony, the culmination of 17 years of grassroots community-based efforts. Congratulations to F.X. Flinn, to the board members of ECFiber, and the many people who have contributed to completing your mission to build fast and reliable broadband in 23 towns across this area in Vermont. Your work will have a significant impact on generations of Vermonters, allowing tens of thousands of families to work, learn, access health care, and stay connected with their loved ones and their extended families. For too long, large swaths of our state have been denied broadband because large companies have not found it profitable enough to invest in rural communities. In response, community organizers in the Upper Valley created ECFiber. You pioneered the communications union district model, which has been replicated across the state and serves as a national model for building out rural broadband. This model not only provides a critical resource for Vermonters, but also directs dollars back into upgrading its infrastructure and into the communities that it serves, guaranteeing sustainability and affordability over the long term. This country once made a historic effort to bring electricity to rural America. ECFiber has long understood that we must make every effort to do the same for broadband. In 2023, high-speed internet must be treated as the new electricity, an essential public utility for everyone, no matter their income or geography. I'm pleased that the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act includes $65 billion to ensure every American has access to reliable, high-speed internet. As these federal dollars hit the ground, they will help connect people and businesses in your more recent member towns and throughout the state. It is my hope that these federal funds help connect people everywhere, not just in areas that are profitable for big companies. Congratulations again, and I look forward to seeing ECFiber's continued success. Sincerely, Bernard Sanders, United States Senator. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, is Rob Fish here? Rob? No. Oh, here he is. He is here. You're here, but however, I think you might be superseded by a federal official who I see here, Clay Purvis. Come up and say hi to us, Clay. Clay, for a long time, was with the Department for Public Service, overseeing telecom, and Clay is now the National Telecommunications Information Administration, NTIA, and NTIA is giving out the BEAD money that was in the IIJA. So the Broadband Equity and Deployment money from the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act. Awesome.
Good job.
Clay, Sam.
Well, thank you for, hello? Okay, thank you for having me, and this is an impromptu speech, but congratulations to ECFiber, and as F.X. mentioned, we announced yesterday $229 million for Vermont, which is going to be an incredible sum of money, more broadband money than we have yet to see. Well, I guess ARPA was a lot, but I remember doing this for over 10 years, working with ECFiber and ValleyNet, driving around the back roads of Randolph and Brookfield and Chelsea, trying to spend $5 million to build middle mile networks. And so this sum of money is just incredible. So we're excited to get started, and look forward to working with the VCBB and all the ISPs in the area to make sure that we are spending this money well, and that we achieve internet for all. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you, Clay, and thank you, FX. Rob Fish, Deputy Director of the Vermont Community Broadband Board, and I just want to say, thank you, ECFiber. You've had plenty of rounds of applauses, but let's do one more time. Come on. ECFiber is what started a movement here in Vermont. Now there are 10 communication union districts representing 216 of Vermont's 252 towns. And much of that, majority of that, is due from the model that ECFiber created and launched in the first place. The model is adjusted many times over, just as anything, is also impromptu. But just thank you, ECFiber, for setting the stage for what's been a remarkable explosion of community broadband across the state.
Thank you. And I want you to know that when, in 2019, when the legislature decided, hey, holy smokes, look at what ECFiber is doing. This thing actually works. This is what we should be doing in the state. Well, you know, what can we do? So they put up kind of a paltry amount of money, and part of the paltry amount was for the Department of Public Service to put somebody to work promoting the idea around the state. That was Rob, okay? And Rob went around and got those, and got the initially 8 and recently a 9th CUD organized. Good job.
Thank you, F.X., for
Good
all
job.
your great
Oh,
work.
Christine, there you are. Come and say hi. All right, Christine Hallquist is the executive director for the Vermont Community Broadband Board. They're giving away the Vermont Community Broadband Fund, which has the ARPA money in it, but the $239 million of BEAD money won't go into that fund. It'll be dealt out differently. Have at it.
Well, this is really a celebration for ECFiber. I'm standing on the shoulders of greatness. You know, when I'm down at DC, we've developed a really tight network of state broadband leaders. You know, one of the things I hear from both a lot of the broadband leaders as well as some of the internet service providers is, oh, you can't get everybody connected to fiber optic internet. And I like to chime in, like, we are. And that's really thanks to the great vision of ECFiber. You know, if you think about success, and this is another reason why I'm so proud of Vermont, you know, we all work together. We don't have the same political issues that other states do. We all band together for a common goal. So we've got a great vision, we've got constancy of purpose, and now we have the funding to get there. So I'm so proud of the work, and thank you, F.X., for all the work ECFiber did leading the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Ellie, are you here?
I'm here.
Yeah, okay, great. Come on up. Ellie DeVilliers is the head of Maple Broadband, and she served with me on the VCUDA board, and I chaired that for the first 2 years of its existence. That is the Vermont Communication Union Districts Association. It's like the Vermont League of Cities and Towns for CUDs. And anyway, Ellie jumped in and took over for me, which was, thank goodness, because I was just at my limit. And now Ellie's doing that. Ellie, on behalf of VCUDA and the other CUDs, would you say a few words?
Absolutely. Thank you, FX. So I'm actually an example of one of the native-born Vermonters that's lived elsewhere and then was able to come back here because of high-speed, or at least relatively high-speed broadband where I live. And I can actually say with authority that ECFiber is a case study that is known worldwide, because I first heard of ECFiber when I was living and working in South Africa as an example of an innovative kind of case study to connect the unconnected and have community involvement for broadband. So again, this is ECFiber's day, but I want to relay that story because I think it's quite relevant. So yes, I am very, very honored and happy to be the chair of VCUDA, and as the Vermont, I like to say the Vermont CUD Association because it's a little bit less of a tongue twister, but it's great to be a member of such an interesting and dynamic group of CUD leaders, and I really do believe that we're stronger together. Thank you, FX.
Yep, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce Fletcher Kittredge. Fletcher heads up Great Works Internet, and they are the company that the East Central Vermont Telecommunication District contracts with to operate the ECFiber business. It's been great to get to know Fletcher over the course of the last year and a half. I can say with authority that the leadership of the district is really thrilled to be working with him and his team, and they have done nothing but enhance what was already a very solid crew of folks who are working with us as ValleyNet and who continue to work for us now as GWI Vermont.
Thank you. And is Tom going to talk?
Yes.
Okay, good.
You can introduce him.
I will introduce him. So I got involved with ValleyNet because I went out drinking with after I was giving a presentation at a conference, and there was this other guy on the panel called Stan Williams, and we had a spirited argument, and we went out drinking afterwards, and I was just really, really interested in what he was saying about what was going on here. I hadn't, this was back in 15. Actually, it must have been earlier because they hadn't floated the first set of bonds yet. They were still doing it with promissory notes. And a few years later, he called me up out of the blue and said, "Do you want to be on the ValleyNet board?" So I was on the ValleyNet board for 3 years and got off to some extent because I wanted to avoid any sort of conflict of interest. And 3 years ago, we started offering phone service for ValleyNet. And then they decided that they would be better off to kind of transition things over to us, and we took over in December. And you know, I come from a small town in Maine, and have a little bit of a different perspective. I've also been doing this for 40 years, actually 39. There's a couple things I know. One is it was just mentioned, ECFiber. You know, you lit something here that lit up the whole state and is well known far beyond. And I wish more people were using your model, but they know about it and there's a chance. But you know, you are internationally recognized and is having done something extraordinary. The other thing I know is you know, the implicit message of all this, that it is, you know, there are probably close to 40 people you could say to that's been involved in this, is that person was vital. And they were all vital for some step or some piece or something like that. And the way that it has come out of our Yankee heritage of small towns where people feel a responsibility to the community, and you get this incredible deep well of volunteers and that sort of thing. It's just extraordinary, and is a message for the rest of the world. And the other thing I know, having done this been around since the very beginning of the internet, this creation will probably, it's certainly going to outlast me, and probably many of us. I suspect that the fiber that has been built in the last few years will still be in use in 40 years. And my guess is ECFiber, I'm not sure if you know, could last for longer. And this is an organization that with such a strong foundation that I think it's going to be around for generations in one form or another, and who knows what they'll be doing with it then. But the technological infrastructure of rural Vermont is going to be based on it. So it's just, I feel very lucky to have been part of it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Fletcher. And Tom, Cecile, please come up.
Can I introduce Tom?
Yeah, please.
I didn't really know Tom very much before we called up and said, "Can you help us out?" He is a gem, an absolute gem, and he's just and you've only been working here like 2 years? 2 years. In 2 years, he's made such extraordinary progress, and in making it, I think, a place that people want to work, and really solidifying the operations and the policies and procedures.
Am I last? Am I last on the list, or are there more people to talk?
More.
Okay. First off, I want to thank Sharon Troutwine for all the work she put in setting this up and getting going. I mean, FX was the driving force, but Sharon and Donna Naran were the hands that actually made it happen. So they deserve applause as much as anybody else. And to extend that, really all I'd like to talk about are the people at GWI Vermont, formerly at Valley Net, formerly part of ECFiber, some of whom, like Corey, we seem to have grabbed out of elementary school, and have been their whole career with the organization, and have learned so much, and they are so darn smart about this. We don't actually give out their names while there are people representing other CUDs here, because they can find them and attempt to hire them. So, Corey's the only one we're naming. But the value of these people is untold. They're the ones who built it. They're the ones who keep it up. I know that there are the president and VP of Eustis Cable Enterprises were here earlier. They do such hard work. When there's a storm, they're up there in the bucket trucks making people's connections go back online as fast as possible. I'm so proud to be able to work with these people. They're so smart. They know so much more about this than I ever will. And the value of it, other people have spoken to it. Just a small personal story. Many of you know I am the lucky recipient of a kidney transplant. It would not have been possible for me to be involved with this organization at all if I hadn't been able to do almost completely virtual work. And it was kind of Carol and Stan to figure out that we could get it done that way. And it seems to have worked out well. It's nice to be able to be in a room, at least with air conditioning, with real people again. But I am a good example of the kind of individual who would not have been able to work here 15 years ago. And so, I'm thankful for ECFiber. I think of myself as an ECFiber customer first, because that was my introduction to the organization. So it's a pleasure to be working with everybody. And again, the team is the message. The team is the people who are keeping this up and alive. So back to FX.
Great, thank you. Okay, Carol, would you come up? So we're going to close this out with a message from the main man, Stan Williams. Okay, and you got to say to yourself, well, who's Stan Williams? Stan Williams is the Ted Williams of ECFiber. Okay, all right, with no Stan, no plan, no ECFiber. Carol,
You want to do it, or you want me to do it?
Sure. So, I'm very sorry I cannot attend this momentous celebration. A bit of history, the whole thing started way back in 2007 when ValleyNet, a local nonprofit ISP that I headed, was figuring out how to improve broadband in the Upper Valley. At the same time, a group of 4 towns in east central Vermont were trying to assemble a critical mass and attract a wireless internet service provider for their towns. Back then, the common knowledge in the telecom industry and its regulators was that fiber to the home was not financially sustainable in rural areas because of a lack of population density, and that copper-based wireless or satellite solutions were good enough. It has taken a long time to reverse that thinking, thanks to 1, the success of rural fiber to the home operators like ECFiber, and 2, the coronavirus pandemic, which highlighted the inadequacies of copper, wireless, and satellite. But in 2008, these 2 groups disregarded common knowledge and came together, with ValleyNet providing the startup financing and expertise, and the towns providing volunteers and civic will. This combination of a community-minded, nonprofit, local ISP, and 24 ambitious towns became ECFiber in March of 2008, when the towns voted nearly unanimously to join in an audacious effort to cover every household and business in the area with fiber using no taxpayer funding. Since then, we have overcome financial market upheaval, initial indifference by the state, and outright roadblocks placed in front of us by the federal government, which gave grants and subsidized loans to outdated copper and wireless solutions. But we kept our nose to the grindstone and persevered and succeeded, as promised, without ECFiber member towns spending a penny of local taxpayer funds. And the result has been local jobs, local control, universal coverage, no data caps, no fine print, no constant price hikes, and fiber on the poles that our grandchildren will be using. In conclusion, I think it is fitting that we should collectively acknowledge the thousands of local citizens who made this audacious idea a success. So let us all give thanks to those who made it happen, from ECFiber and ValleyNet volunteers to ECFiber investors to ValleyNet employees, and of course to our 8,000 and growing loyal ECFiber customers. Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts. I can't think of better words to end on.
Thank you, Stan.
Okay, so we've got plenty of extra food. Please feel free to take some home with you. There's chips, there's soda, there's... Oh yes, if you don't have your future family heirloom golden patch cord, please be sure to take one on your way out. Okay? Again, thank you all for coming. I hope you had as much fun as I did. Onward.
Great job, Stan. Congratulations again.